And the analogy I thought of, and because I'm trying to think of a way to explain this to people when we're going through the financial planning process, but I feel like the best way to think of it is like you and your partner are cooking dinner together, and all you know is that you're working towards like a nice meal that you can eat together. You sit down at the end of the evening, have a good meal. Awesome. But imagine you're cooking together and not talking about what you're making. Like you're just both cooking away, doing your thing, like not communicating about what's actually being cooked.
Yeah.
And now imagine, David's making Thai and you're making Mexican. And like
we're having like pad Thai burritos for dinner now.
Exactly.
Which actually doesn't sound that bad.
Right. So,
I don't know.
So it could end up insanely, it could be this amazing meal. You could just happen to end up having a great time and it all works out really well. Or it could be a disaster and you wouldn't know until you get there.
Welcome to Checks and Balances. This is Jess and Michaela back with another episode of The Takeover, sponsored by Partners Life. What are we talking about today, Jess?
Today, okay, you read Reddit.
I love
lot.
Reddit.
Yeah, I've never ever got amongst it. And you've introduced me to this whole world of the Personal Finance New Zealand subreddit. Is that what you call it?
So you're down with the lingo. Subreddit.
Yeah, and we thought it would be interesting to dive into that today. Pick up a couple of posts that we thought were interesting topics, give our thoughts on them. I, to be honest, after looking through it, am just shook that is where people are getting their financial advice from.
It's actually, I feel like people ask so many questions in there. Like I go in there probably daily, and some of the questions are really small and minor, but some people are asking for like an entire financial plan from just a bunch of anonymous people that don't know what they're talking about.
Life-changing decisions, major, big, life-changing advice that they're getting from strangers that don't even know them. I think like for me, that was the main thing I kind of got from reading these posts. I was like, and because when we're financial advisors, we do financial planning as a job. We're qualified. We've done a lot of study. We see things all the time, and people come in and like the process of getting to know a person and getting to know their situation is like we spend hours getting to know someone before making recommendations and coming up with a financial plan, whereas these people read like 100-word post and off they go.
It'll be like someone will post and they're like, oh, I've inherited $1 million, what do? What should I do with it? And then like fucking Joe 1 2 3 4 is like, you should put it all in an aggressive fund. And they're like, okay, sounds good.
Yes, absolutely blows my mind. But anyway, that aside, I think we were sort of just talking about at breakfast, like some of the advice on there is actually pretty good, and then other times it's way off. So I think for me, like we're going through these posts, we'll talk about our opinion, but the main thing to think is like anyone can say anything on the internet, including us. So whenever you're getting this advice from Reddit posts, podcasts, make sure you're fact checking this stuff with reliable sources. Like IRD website has lots of really good tools when it comes to tax. Like people asking for their tax advice on there too. Check the IRD website, check sorted.org. That's another really good one. Make sure you're actually doing your own due diligence as well, instead of just taking these people's opinions and running with it. Don't take advice
from Reddit posts, but do read them because sometimes they're hilarious.
Yeah. Some good entertainment value at least. Anyway, should we crack into it? All right. The first post we're going to look at, titled WTF is this? ? My husband says he's uncomfortable sharing his finances with me. 33F, 35M.
That's like age and gender. So like 33 female, 35 male. It's like ASL,
Yeah.
MSN days.
School. Okay. All right. So the story is, this has been aching me since forever and I can't take it anymore. My husband, 35M, and I, 33F, have been together for 4 years and married for 3 months. He's always been very private and low profile all his life, even before he met me. When we first got together, he used to tell me everything about his finances, not in detail, but he used to share with me how much he has or how much in debt he is with his credit cards and all.
That's like what we talked about in our financial infidelity episode.
Yes.
Like before you get married, you've got to be upfront with all your bits and bobs.
Let's have a chat about it. During our engagement, he changed jobs, and since then he stopped sharing anything with me. He knows how much I make and all the details about my finances, but when I ask him, he acts as if I'm invading his privacy or smothering him.
What?
Red flag. I once asked him how much he makes a month so that we can plan our budgeting and responsibilities together. He refused to tell me the exact salary, told me an average of what he makes, and I didn't insist to know back then.
That's really weird.
I think that is
why
weird.
would you not share your exact, like, why not?
I know.
Like, that's
I
strange.
think as well, like, and everyone's, it's hard because relationships dynamics are always different and you're going to be at different stages and people might not always be comfortable sharing their incomes and things. And that's totally understandable. But in my opinion, once you're married,
Yeah.
that should be the one person that you can share everything with.
And it's also like he's got a new job, right? So
yeah. So he's gone from sharing to to sharing even
weird.
less, which is, yeah.
Okay, tell me more.
A
Give
bit
me the goss.
interesting. So recently, though, he told me he had a loan for us. He had a loan for us to get married. I asked him about it as a normal response to the conversation with the pure intention of helping him out. He implied that it was a big number, but also refused to tell me the amount. I tried to tell him that our marriage shouldn't have secrets. I think that's fair. I think that's like,
I mean,
a big thing.
If you've
to
got a
keep from
massive
someone.
loan for the wedding, assuming she didn't know the wedding was paid for by a loan, then
Yeah, it sounds like it.
that's
eh?
wild.
Yeah. Shouldn't have secrets, and I want our marriage to have transparency and shared responsibility, which is what
Fair.
it's all about, right? Or at least that's how I see a healthy marriage. I also find it quite interesting that they've got to the point of marriage and this is still happening. Like,
Yeah.
this
But
is
it sounds
happening.
like, I mean, I could be reading into it wrong, but it sounds like he was normal,
or sharing
for lack
some
of a better
stuff.
word.
Yeah.
and then recently, all of a sudden, he's
shut
stopped
down.
sharing stuff.
I wonder if there's some kind of element of like, maybe he's lost his job and he's embarrassed to share it. But yeah, I just feel like with a marriage, for me, the idea is that you're a team. It's like you guys against the world, kind of working towards shared vision, blah, blah, blah. So if you can't share this with that one person, like the marriage is, what is it? What's it
Yeah.
for? Why
And
did you
also,
bother?
why is he taking out a loan for the wedding and not telling her? For all he knows, she would have been fine getting married in the garage or something.
100%.
Like,
Save himself the stress. Oh gosh. Yeah. And I find like the dynamic in this, and it's really hard too because we're only getting one side of the story, right? But I find the concept of one-way sharing very strange. Like that she's totally open with him about all of her stuff, but he's
like, no, why
the
would you
brick
ask
wall.
me?
Yeah, super strange. That's weird in the first instance. But I also find like, and we've sort of touched on this before, but not being on the same page with anything in a relationship does make it difficult. And, you know, we've had recently a few people come through the door looking for financial plans as couples, but having separate plans.
Oh.
And I just don't know how that's going to work. And the analogy I thought of, and because I'm trying to think of a way to explain this to people when we're going through the financial planning process, but I feel like the best way to think of it is like you and your partner are cooking dinner together, and all you know is that you're working towards like a nice meal that you can eat together. You sit down at the end of the evening, have a good meal. Awesome. But imagine you're cooking together and not talking about what you're making. Like you're just both cooking away, doing your thing, like not communicating about what's actually being cooked.
Yeah.
And now imagine, you know, David's making Thai and you're making Mexican. And like,
We're having like pad Thai burritos for dinner now.
exactly.
Which actually doesn't sound that bad.
Right. So,
I don't know. I
so
might eat
it
that.
could end up insanely, it could be this amazing meal. You could just happen to end up having a great time and it all works out really well. Or it could be a disaster and you wouldn't know until you get there, you know? And
Am
that's
I
how I
opening
think
a
of it.
fusion restaurant or am I putting this down the toilet?
Yeah, exactly. That's how I think of it. And yeah, I think it's very difficult for these people, especially now that you're married. This is not early days relationship. You've taken the marriage commitment, vows, etc., and you're still not sharing this stuff two ways. To me is wild. It carries on. Please tell me if I'm in the wrong here. He keeps manipulating me that I'm a bitch who doesn't respect his privacy or what makes him comfortable, and that he could have kept the whole loan thing from me. In other words, I should be thankful that he even decided to share with me that he took a loan. I don't even want to know about the loan anymore. He's very cautious when it comes to sharing any information with me. Yeah, I think this all speaks to the relationship in a wider sense as well. Like if he doesn't feel secure or comfortable enough to share with you, like there's more going on here.
I'm kind of wondering if he even has a job. Like,
yeah, well,
yeah, if he's not telling, okay, so he started a new job somewhere in that they got married. He's taken a loan for the wedding. He won't tell her where he's working, how much he's making. Is he just like taking out heaps of debt and pretending he's going to work?
And what's the end game there? Like, where's that going to end up? What do the top comments say? The top comment, I love this. You are underreacting. This is so suspicious.
This
and
is
shady.
suspicious.
I tend to agree. You are I've never heard that. You're underreacting. It's always you're
I've actually
overreacting.
never heard that either.
It's always you're overreacting. Oh, good.
At the end of the post, she's put an update, and basically she's told everything to him that she'd gathered from the comments in the thread and said it's a deal breaker for her.
Yeah.
But he still thinks he's in the right and that he doesn't have to. I mean, I guess you can't force someone to share this information, but like, if that's a deal breaker for the relationship, like, fair enough.
Yeah, I think
weird.
that's fair. And maybe for them, hopefully, an interim step would be some therapy, financial advisor / therapy.
That's what James Blair is for.
yeah, totally. Sometimes a financial plan can feel like low-key marriage counseling for sure, because you're working through all these questions together, and
very confronting.
It opens up conversations that people just don't normally have. So yeah, I reckon they should hopefully. I mean, you've gone through the hassle of getting married and taking out the loan, so just pay a little bit more for some.
I wish them all the best, but I think she should dump him.
Oh my God. Strong stance. Okay,
so the other one we picked out, this one is out of Personal Finance New Zealand subreddit. And this one is like more of a very specific mortgage related questions. It's right up my alley.
Perfect.
Anyway, so the title is, how badly will this hurt my chances? A little over a year ago, I made what I assumed was my final payment on my Farmers MasterCard and had asked for my account to be closed. Several months later, I pulled a credit report on myself and I saw missed payments from Farmers MasterCard to the amount of $85 that had been sent to debt collections.
This is so annoying because this could be for like
$85.
You might have bought a beanbag or something. I don't know. What did you buy?
It's probably fees or something.
Ugh.
Okay, they go on to say, when I had made my final payment, there was an incoming interest amount that had not been included. It gets a bit messy here as I was not receiving statements, so I had no idea this payment existed.
Okay, you best believe if this happened to me, farmers would be hearing from me.
Oh, yeah.
I would be I'd be on the phone to some poor person.
This actually happens quite a lot, though, that like someone thinks they've closed their card or they've paid what they think is the amount owing and asked for it to be closed. But it turns out like whenever you close a debt facility, you always need to ask the lender for what the closing balance is, because there might be pending interest charges. And then if you just pay what you think is the balance owing, and there's actually like an extra $2 in interest that gets charged after the fact, this is what will happen. It will just stagnate in the background.
Is this not on the lend? Like, surely it's up to farmers, though, to contact you and be like, this is the closing statement. Like, I know in all the jobs I've ever had, we send a closing statement of like, here's the last bill. Like, how
they want to get that shmoney. No, I don't know.
So terrible.
Before we move on, we talk all the time about planning and growing our wealth, but protecting that wealth is just as important. That's why having the right insurance in place can help when life goes unexpectedly.
And that's why this episode is brought to you by Partners Life, a New Zealand operated award-winning insurance provider with over 300,000 Kiwis insured and 89% of claims paid.
Partners Life understand that having some insurance is better than having no insurance. They have flexible and personalized solutions for any budget or situation.
Check out their website in our show notes below.
Okay, so she says, I had no idea the payment existed. The issue had been sorted, but I still had collections notices on my credit report as it was still a debt I had not paid, $85. In 6 months' time, I want to apply for a first home loan alongside my husband. He has great credit. I have fair credit apart from the Farmers MasterCard. No missed bill payments and one personal loan, which I would still have at the time of applying, but it has perfect repayment history. Would a bank decline an application because of a collections notice, which would have been 18 months old if I have good repayment history otherwise?
This is a very good question. Do you know the answer to this question?
So the answer is it's going to depend on the bank, but a lot of people get really hung up on small things on their credit reports.
Yeah.
So this is $85. It's a card that they thought was closed. And it sounds like as soon as they discovered it was an issue, they've cleared it up.
Right.
But obviously that's going to hang around on your credit report as like a default or a collections or however it's recorded. But you just have to explain to the lender what the problem is, because this is a really minor issue. This isn't like she defaulted on a like $50,000 loan and then didn't pay it for years. It's just $85 she didn't know about and paid it when she knew about it.
So you can tell the story to the bank. It's not as if a bank's gonna it's like talking to a brick wall, even though it might feel like it.
It does feel like that.
I think
sometimes.
that's yeah. I think that's what's scary for people who don't see mortgage stuff every day like you, because you know, for us, it's the biggest purchase you'll ever make in your life. It's a huge process. It's scary. You don't know. And like this one little thing, you're like, could this trip me up and then I'm screwed? Like,
Yeah.
you know, if I go to the bank and they say no and then I can't reapply, then I can't buy a house and blah, blah, blah. And you go down the slippery slope
Yeah.
of like
No, people
spiraling.
like really psych themselves
Of
out
course,
over
yeah.
these kinds of things.
Understandably.
And I think it stops a lot of people from even making the application because
Yeah.
in their head they're thinking, oh no, I've got like bad credit or a bad credit history. But like I've explained away much larger things than this. And as long as there's a reason it's happened and you've made means to repay it and bring it right,
yeah.
that's usually fine.
Mm.
So I think like reading this, I thought was really interesting because I do have clients that will, you know, they'll set a meeting up with an advisor and then they say, oh, but I'm not sure if I can do this because I have a credit card.
Wow.
And it's like, but will I have to close the credit card or like things like this? But to us, it's, you know, you can, as long as you clean those things up or you're paying them on time or
yeah.
you can service all your debts at one go, it's not a big problem, if a problem at all.
Yeah.
You just
okay.
need to talk to your advisor and they'll sort it out for you.
Awesome. Okay. And yeah, I think moral of the story there is getting the expert advice, right? And maybe don't go straight to the bank. Maybe talk to a couple
Yeah.
of mortgage advisors.
But even if you
first.
do go straight to the bank, like you explain yourself and the worst they're going to say is no. But if you don't ask, then like you have no idea. You're just assuming they'll say no.
Mm.
And it may not actually be a problem at all.
But then if they say no, does that mean you can't ask them again?
No, not necessarily. It would just generally whoever's said no will give you some advice, like how long you need to wait or what you need to show.
Yep.
But honestly, for this specific person, if she came across my desk, I don't think this would be an
This would
issue
be like
at
a
all.
Child's
So
play.
whoever you are out there in the country,
don't
worry
stress.
about it.
Yeah. Awesome. So our third and final post that we're going to go through, this one's close to my heart because I've done this. So title, Working on a Move to Europe, Need Some Finance Feedback.
Mhm.
It says, hi team, 27, and I'm getting a bit burned out with New Zealand. That's a bit sad.
Fair.
Had my savings wiped last year on some medically needed surgery, but having no interest in waiting 10 plus years when I could pauper myself to get it done ASAP. I don't understand that. Anyway, how much would you recommend having when migrating countries? My plan is either au pair for 4 to 8 months, ideally squeezing in some barista work or English teaching while working aggressively on my German with a more, it's an aggressive language.
This is a lot of stuff she's got going on.
With a more long-term goal of eventually sorting out my master's in education. Cool. I'm on track for 18,000 New Zealand dollars or 10,000 euros by the end of the year. Is that a good enough sum? This is ignoring selling bits and pieces and the value of the car. I do have a support network if shit hits the fan, but they're all scattered across the British Isles and I'm planning on going continental. Wow.
I feel like this person, like they have thought it out, but I feel like they need to lay down their exact plan of what they want to do.
Do you?
more.
See, I don't know. I feel like
But I'm a planner, so I don't know.
Yeah, I am too. And I went to the UK with probably less of a plan than this. But what I was going to say was when we moved over in 2015, we had 20 grand between us. So 10 grand each. So she's already well ahead of
Was
that.
that like euros or pounds?
Dollars.
Oh,
I'm
10,000
pretty
New
sure it
Zealand
was only
dollars.
10,000 New Zealand dollars each.
Mm.
And we had, I say only, I mean, it's like 10 grand. If you think about 10 grand, you can get pretty
That's a
far
lot.
with 10 grand. And then we had 5 weeks of travel. We had somewhere to stay, which I think makes a huge difference.
Yep.
And we didn't have jobs lined up. So I worked for a company that I could have transferred to. So that was kind of semi in the works, but not confirmed. So we didn't have jobs. We had a big trip. We did have a place to stay and we had 10 grand each.
Yeah.
So I feel like that was winging it probably a little bit more than she's winging it.
That's true.
And
I
I'm
feel
a
like if
planner.
maybe it's just because she said my plan is, and then she's listed like 4 different things.
Plans, yeah.
And so I'm like, to me, I'm thinking, well, what, like some of these things are going to be better than the other. Like, you know, I don't know how the aggressive German helps her.
Yeah.
But, like, you know, sorting out her master's or getting an English teaching job, those things make sense. But squeezing in barista work or au pairing for 8 months, like, these are very
She's
different
keeping her options open.
things.
We've assumed she. Penguin Bear Art is the name. I'm going to assume it's a she. Yeah,
Bear
that's what it is. I think 18 grand is more than enough for you to move country, get yourself set up, figure out what you're doing. It's double what I had, and we were absolutely fine. I think this also, because so many people will be going through this at the moment, like moving
Very
country,
true.
and it is a scary thing.
Yeah.
It's really, because you just don't know what you're arriving to. Like when I moved to London, I'd never been there before, so you just don't know.
I'd
right?
never been here before.
Yeah, it's all the unknown.
The whole other hemisphere is scary.
But it totally depends on your situation. Like it
Yeah.
depends on how employable are you? How much work experience have you already had? Do you have people that you can fall back on, which this person does? You know, you did as well
Yeah.
when you came here, was with David, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I actually had a really hard time getting a job here. Like, nobody
you?
wanted to hire me because even though there's very little difference between like mortgage lending and the property market, like there is differences,
so
but they're very
frustrating.
minor differences
Yeah.
between New Zealand and Canada. But nobody wanted to hire me because I had no New Zealand experience, even though I
Ugh.
had a hell of a lot of experience in the industry in general. Like I think about 7 years at that point.
This is
It
absolutely
was so
infuriating.
hard
Yeah,
to find
and
a job.
it's not just you to hear. It's like from New Zealand to the UK, from the UK back to New Zealand. I had it both ways. I'm
Yeah.
like, this is all the same stuff that we're doing, guys.
Yeah.
It's just got a very slightly different
Yeah,
name.
it's like, sorry, we call it in Canada an amortizing period, but you call it term.
Oh,
Scary.
I'm never gonna figure it out. Yeah, it was so frustrating. But yeah, I would say Penguin Bear Art, you are so prepared in terms of your finances, your situation, you're employable, you've got skills. I wouldn't stress. I think you're going to be really well set up. And saying that, I think people move with a lot less. Like people,
I think I had like $500.
stop it.
when I
You did
moved
not.
here.
You did not.
Okay, this is what I
And you
did.
say you're a
So-
planner. Michaela. But to be fair, you had David, so I feel like that's sort of valid.
I wasn't, yeah, I don't think like I knew I was gonna, have a place to move into, and like
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
hard to find a job.
This person's going on their own.
But
Different.
yeah, it was a different situation. And I like, there's no way ever would I have just packed up and moved to a country by myself with
No.
$500
Right,
in my
yes.
pocket.
Like if you were on your own, imagine how different that would have looked. Yeah. So I think moral of that story is totally you and your scenario. It depends. Some people are planners, some people just want to go and wing it, and both are totally fine. I think it's all part of the experience. And what you'll probably find is if you end up somewhere and you've got £10 left in your account, you're going to find a way. You're not
Yeah.
going to be picky about where you work. You're going to find a
No.
way to find money.
McDonald's is always hiring.
You're going to find a place to stay. You're going to land on your feet, and you're going to chalk it up to experience, which
and
is
you're
like
gonna
what it's all about.
aggressively work on your German.
Yeah, aggressively. So funny.
If you had a major financial decision to make, maybe I'm asking the wrong person because you're literally a financial planner, but would you go to Reddit? Like, let's say you didn't want to ask anyone that you were working with because it was like personal. Do you think that this is an option that you would ask for advice?
Absolutely not for me. This is not the avenue that I would take. Yeah, I'm very much into researching and using reputable sources of information, asking experts, that type of
What do you
thing.
mean? There's heaps of experts in
Yeah,
here.
all the keyboard experts, keyboard warriors.
I
on
don't think
Reddit.
I would either, to be honest. Like, well, that's probably not shocking, but you shouldn't be getting your financial advice from Reddit. Your personal life advice, sure. If you want to like complain about your relationship or ask what kind of food to feed your dog, I don't know.
Yeah.
Not financial advice.
It seems like quite a major thing to be just taking other people's opinion on. So maybe to take away from today, sometimes the Reddit advice is sound. Sometimes it's worth doing your own research, taking that with a grain of salt. And yeah, just be wary. Be careful out there.
Yeah, the internet's scary.
Yeah, indeed. Awesome. Well, we'll wrap up there for today. Thank you to Partners Life for sponsoring the episode. Don't forget to like, review, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.